What the Falcons do? Rise up. Welcome to Rise Up Reactions, the show where we talk all things Falcons, NFL, Georgia sports, and in general the sports news of the day. I'm your host, Dr. Lee Denning, lifelong sports fan, and today I just wanted to briefly talk about the opponents that we're going to face next year as the Falcons. We have 8 home games, 9 away games. If you remember when they went to 17 games, they basically said on odd years, the AFC teams will have 9 games. On even years, the NFC teams are going to have 9 games. At least that's how I think it is. We don't know yet who will be playing in London. The Falcons certainly could have one of those games be there. I would hope that if we play in London, that the AFC team would be the home team so that we're not losing out on a home game. However, a couple of years ago, we definitely only had 7 home games as a result. That's where Kyle Pitts got his first touchdown. And anyways, just moving on to this, let's talk about our opponents. Let's talk about the home opponents first. And we're not going to know when we play these guys until probably, I think it's about late May every year that they come out with the schedule, mid-late May. So it'll be a little while before we know for sure what the schedule is going to look like. And it does matter for when we play these teams. But let's talk about it real quick. NFC South. Obviously, we're going to play Carolina, the Saints, and Tampa Bay at home at some point. All of these teams are going to be in shambles this next year. All of them. All 4 teams in the NFC South have been pretty abysmal overall this year, but the Falcons have the highest potential turnaround and the quickest turnaround time because of how much money we're going to have in the offseason. It's projected right now we're going to have somewhere around $70-75 million without cutting Marcus Mariota. If we cut Mariota, we'll be having a dead cap of about $2 million, but I think we end up saving $12 to $14 million on his contract. So that's another large sum of money that we'll have to pay players. I don't know if we should keep Casey Hayward. He's a little bit older for a corner. Again, younger than me, but old in terms of football and what we're talking about at a pro level. Still a very good corner. He was just hurt this year, and we didn't get to maximize his potential. And obviously the Dean Pease defense, which Dean Pease is very likely going to be gone too. There's talk of him retiring, required Hayward to be a part of that. But at some point, we're going to play these guys. Every single one of those games, all 6 of them, home and away, are winnable games. There's not a good reason the Falcons should not be in strong contention to be first in the division, if not running away with it altogether. Then we are going to be playing the NFC North. 2 home games, 2 away games. The 2 home games are going to be the Minnesota Vikings and the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay, if Aaron Rodgers is there, I look for that to be a potentially competitive game. If Jordan Love's there, I have no idea. They're still not going to be a terrible team. They are starting to have some of these young players emerge for them. Their season is over just like ours is. And again, had they gotten going earlier in the season, they might have actually made the playoffs. But again, they looked like a better team than we did at the end of the year, but they still finished relatively the same as we did, missing out. So I do think Green Bay is a team that we could win against next year, depending on if Aaron Rodgers is there or not. I think Aaron Rodgers is a major factor for them. That will determine if they are the favorite or not. And then you have the Minnesota Vikings. Again, Minnesota 13-4 this year. Negative 3-point differential. Not a good 13-4 team. They've gotten incredibly lucky. Incredibly lucky in 1-score games, and things have just gone their way. I don't think they're going to be as good next year. Dalvin Cook is probably not coming back. They don't have the money to re-sign him. Kirk Cousins, I don't remember. I think he has 1 more year left. They are still going to have Justin Jefferson. I think Thielen may be done after this year as well. So they're going to be in a little bit of a rebuild mode in some ways, but they could still be a competitive team. That defense, though, is really shoddy. So they're going to have to make a lot of changes in the offseason. And they're another team that doesn't have a ton of money to do it, but certainly could in the draft. But definitely a winnable game there. As far as our away games, we go to the Bears, we go to the Lions. I think both of those are going to be fun. The Chicago Bears, obviously, we played them this year. They're going to be a little bit different next year. They're in the same boat that we are, and that's going to be a matchup that I'm really interested to see because they have a ton of money and a high upside quarterback. We have a ton of money and a moderate upside quarterback. So I think we're going to be playing a very interesting game there. I'm not sure what's going to happen in terms of how they re-sign players for the Bears, but they need a completely new defense as well. We do, and they do. We outplayed them this year, which is really the only reason we beat them, and Justin Fields was hurt, which went in our favor. Detroit Lions, I think that's probably a loss for us just right out the gate on paper. They have a lot of talent returning next year. It'll be really interesting to see their moves as well, but I think the Detroit Lions is probably the hardest team that we're going to have to play out of that division, followed up by, again, the Packers and Vikings, depending on what happens in the offseason. And I think Chicago Bears, fun game just to see because, again, they're competing directly with us. They have the highest cap space, and we have the second highest, so we're going to be competing with them this offseason. Then we have, let's see here, we will play the NFC East number 4 team since we finished fourth in the division. That's going to be the Washington Commies. We went to them this year. We play them at home this next year, so we don't have to go to FedEx Field, which is great. We didn't end up with any significant injuries this year that I'm aware of, unless Kyle Pitts went out. That might have been the Pitts going out game. I can't recall off the top of my head. But either way, we don't have to go to FedEx, which is notoriously bad for injuries later in seasons in particular. And then for the NFC West, we do have to go to the Arizona Cardinals. So they finished at the bottom of their division. We finished at the bottom. We will be going out there to play them. Again, it depends on when we play them. They may not have Kyler Murray. He went down with an ACL injury in November, so he could be out all the way until late October, early November this next year. He definitely won't start the season, and they probably are going to be on a new coach. So that's a wild card team to me. I have no idea how that's going to end up going. Let's talk about our AFC opponents, though. We get the AFC South. It ain't going to get easier than this. The NFC North is going to be a much different opponent next year than it is this year, and the AFC South should still be bad. Houston Texans screwed themselves out of the number 1 overall draft pick. They failed at failing. We get them at home, and we get the Indianapolis Colts at home. Now, the Indianapolis Colts, I think, could be interesting if Matt Ryan is still under center. It's not looking like that's going to be the case. They very likely are going to be a team that's in competition for either C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, or Will Levis. We don't know. They're picking at 4 overall. Very likely, if they do nothing, they will have their shot at the number 2 or 3 quarterback overall. I do look for somebody to try and trade with Chicago, and I think Indianapolis makes a ton of sense there because that way they would probably have to trade their number 1 pick this year, number 1 pick next year, and a couple of number 2 picks, if not their number 1 pick 3 years in a row for that pick overall, and they would be looking to get potentially a generational quarterback, and Chicago would be looking to build draft capital for the future while still retaining a top 5 draft pick to take someone like Myles Murphy, Jalen Carter. They probably wouldn't get Will Anderson with that because they would have traded out of it, but again, that's our 2 home opponents. We do go to the Titans and we go to the Jaguars. Titans, I don't know. They're going to be a wild card next year. Their defense is abysmal. They had one of the biggest collapses I can remember seeing for a team. Very reminiscent of the Baltimore Ravens last year going, I think they were like 8-0 at one point and then finished with a losing record, I think it was, or maybe 9-8. They missed the playoffs. Either way, they had a terrible finish to the year. Jacksonville Jaguars, they should still be good. They have built the team the right way. Granted, it took 5 or 6 years of being bottom feeders in the NFL and getting top 5 draft picks for years. It finally culminated in getting that right quarterback with the right coach at the right time, and they are making the playoffs. And as you will remember from my video yesterday, I have them winning that playoff game. Only time's going to tell if they end up moving forward. Trevor Lawrence is finally starting to pay dividends for them. Doug Peterson seems to be maximizing his potential. So again, I think that's going to be a tough game. That one is one that I would circle on the calendar. Might like to go travel to that game. The good news about both that and Tennessee are they are relatively close to Atlanta. Nashville being 4 hours away and Jacksonville being about 7 hours away. So not terrible drives, or maybe a short flight if you're going from Atlanta to Jacksonville. And I have some friends who are Jacksonville Jaguars fans. I have people that I know who are down there who enjoy going to those games. So I might look to try and and see if I can maybe go with one of them next year to that game. We'll just kind of play that one by ear. But then the final opponent that we have is the AFC East. This is the other team that we'll be playing based on, I think this was based on how we both finished overall in the division. It might be rotational. I forget what they actually did a few years in the NFL. I'm going to have to relook at that rule. But we're going to the New York Jets. Tough game. That defense is going to be suffocating no matter when we play them. Robert Saleh is a supreme defensive-minded coach. Their offense will be much better. Breece Hall will be back. He's going to be a monster. Who knows what they're going to do at quarterback? They're another team that could potentially trade the entire farmhouse and the entire future to move into one of those slots to take Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. Again, I'm not making a commentary on who is the better one of those two, but those are right now the two guys that are looking at 1 and 2 quarterbacks off the board, however you want to take it. If you want to say Will Levis should also be in there, or Anthony Richardson should be in there, fine, make that argument. But I'm just saying, these are guys that right now, for all the experts out there, that's who they have as the number 1 and 2 quarterback off the board. And they could make a play to certainly get there. They look to be just like the Jets, kind of one piece away from making a good run. Their piece just happens to be quarterback. I really thought Zach Wilson would take a step forward this year. Instead, he regressed hard to the point of being non-existent. But anyways, guys, that's just a quick look at our schedule. Just to recap real quick, we have at home and away, we have 6 games total with the Carolina Panthers, New Orleans Saints, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as always. And then we are playing the NFC North, Minnesota Vikings and Green Bay Packers at home, and we go to the Bears and to the Lions. And we play the AFC South. We have 2 games at home with Houston Texans and Indianapolis Colts. We have 2 games away, Jacksonville Jaguars and the Tennessee Titans. Our NFC West opponent is going to be the Cardinals, and our AFC East opponent will be the New York Jets. Both of those are away games. NFC East, because of how we finished in the division, will be the Washington Commies. Thanks for watching, guys. Let me know if you're excited about this schedule. Personally, I think this is going to be as easy on paper as a schedule as we could possibly hope for. Still going to be difficult, but a lot of these teams next year are not going to be the same teams that you're seeing this year. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. Consider liking, sharing, subscribing. It would really help me build in this offseason as I try to bolster numbers and get to where I can really reach more people. Thank you so much to the guys who have subscribed already and have been a part of the community with me for this short time of me being a YouTuber. You guys mean the world to me. Thank you for all the support that you provided. As always, guys, thank you for watching, and rise up.